turn to introduce now panel number 3, Blockchain Unlocking the Mystery. It'll be moderated by Phil Cohn, and it includes Tony Bailey from DAS Omicron and Chris Buren from the RBS Blockchain Hub. Are they here or online? Okay.
No,
There you
Francisco, good morning, everyone. This is Alex Kunish. I'm here in Newark. This next panel is going to be held here live in Newark. So Francisco, thank you for that. And I'll turn it over to Professor Phil Cohen. He's a newly minted professor in the marketing department. So we're happy to welcome him to join our summit activities today and his panel on blockchain. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and welcome everyone here in Newark and everybody in New Brunswick and everyone on Zoom. As Alex said, I'm Phil Cohn. I'm a new professor here at Rutgers University, but a two-time alum, both undergrad and grad in New Brunswick and Newark. So I sat where a lot of you are sitting a few years ago, and I had about a 35-year career in running sales and marketing for various consumer electronics companies. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled to be hosting the panel on blockchain, unlocking the mystery. Before we start, financial disclaimer. What we're going to talk about today is not financial advice. It is just opinion and hopefully providing you some insights into blockchain. And I'm also very excited to introduce the panelists here. Next to me here in Newark is Chris Buren. As Francisco said, Chris, not only is a student here, but also started the blockchain hub here at Rutgers University. He's studying today at Rutgers MS Quantitative Finance program. Is that what you're in, right? And as I said, he started with a group of students and professors, the blockchain hub program at Rutgers Business School. And for those of you not familiar with that program, the group holds crypto and blockchain workshops, speaker events, and sponsors student travel to hackathons and conferences across the country. He now works in quant risk at a crypto startup. So this is Chris here. Let's welcome Chris. Okay, thank you. As I drop my cards. All right, Tim Bailey. Welcome from Chicago, Tim.
Tony.
Tony, sorry, Tony Bailey, welcome from Chicago. Tony works for Omnicom Group, where they're a marketing and advertising holding company. He leads tech innovation and looking at the future of brand experiences. He's a software engineer by background, and he started his career in the middle of the dot-com boom. For those of you that were around for that, you know how volatile that was. And he was a builder in Web 1 during that time. Now he helps both clients and agencies with strategies to onboard Web 3, right, Tony?
That's correct.
Okay, well, thanks again. Yeah. So let's start at the beginning. Tony, I'll start with you. What is blockchain? There's a lot of confusion around it. What's blockchain?
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of confusion. And a lot of people, a lot of skeptics look at blockchain and say, hey, there's nothing we're doing with blockchain that we couldn't already do with a regular database. And in many ways, they're absolutely right. The big difference is that with blockchain, what we have is we have a public ledger. We have a piece of public infrastructure that anyone can use that is secure, that allows us to record transactions. And while the initial use for blockchain was around Bitcoin, and in Bitcoin, the original Bitcoin white paper was all about solving one problem and really solving one use case and allowing two people to electronically send cash money to each other without any intermediaries. And what we've seen over the last 12 plus years is an evolution of blockchain to support more than just payments and financial assets, but starting to allow us to have digital property rights and digital ownership. And this is something that as consumers, as users, as customers, we've never really had this notion of digital ownership before. So blockchain is going to open this up. It's going to enable in new ways, and we're really only in the early innings for what we're going to be able to do and the kind of disruption, the kind of innovation we're going to see possible.
Thanks, Tony. Chris, anything to add to that?
Definitely. I think Tony did a great job explaining the basics of it and kind of like the implications of where it can go. But one of the best examples, analogies that I've heard so far is, I think everyone has used like Google Docs here before, right? And Microsoft Word, obviously. So you can kind of think about a regular like relational database or database management system as Google Docs, right? Everyone has access to the same centralized server. You know, there's different permissions, obviously, whether you can view or edit or things like that. But at the end of the day, it's one centralized point where all the data is stored. When you go to blockchain, you can think of it more like a bunch of people, almost like you're in a group or a project or something like that, but you're all doing your own individual work on the same project on Microsoft Word. So it is more inefficient, right? You can't see what other people are doing. It's not as easy to kind of communicate, but that kind of layer of people coming together and the network effect of, you know, having a majority of the network say, this is the right work that we did. These are the right answers to the problems. If one person gets the answer wrong, but everyone else got it right, you know, you go with the majority that got it right, and that's your final answer for the project. So in a lot of respects, blockchain is not that efficient. In some respects, it's vastly inefficient when you're comparing it to a regular database. But as I'm sure you'll see in the next half hour or so, it can unlock some pretty interesting applications that aren't you aren't able to do with a regular database.
Thank you, Chris. And, you know, just I'm going to play the part of total novice when it comes to blockchain. So you said a lot of things there, and we're going to double click, like you said, on a few of them. But blockchain, simply said, if I'm correct, give me props. If not, correct me, is a new type of database, right? A more secure database that allows for many transactions that can be tracked and provide, you know, like I said, security for these transactions. Is that right? It's a database.
Yeah. You know, Phil, even more simply, the database, think of it as a ledger. You know, think of it as accounting T tables, and you've got debits and credits. And at the most basic level, that's what the blockchain is. And it's a ledger, and it's a public ledger that's shared among millions of computers around the world. And once an entry is made in that ledger, it can't be changed. You can't roll it back. You can't hack that. And that's what's pretty fascinating about this technology. It's very simplistic in that nature by design, but it allows us to have a secure common ledger that everyone has agreed upon what the state and the records on it, and that we can't alter it.
So if there's a ledger that's out there worldwide that people could view, how do we respect security and privacy in the blockchain? Go ahead, Chris.
If anyone has ever been in Web3 or crypto or blockchain before, you've definitely heard the term addresses, right? And there's public and private key cryptography. But basically, when you are transacting on these open ledgers, all the transactions are public. All the data is public, whether you're in the finance industry or you're a marketer or anything like that. There's vast amounts of data that are out there. And just my work experience, it is, even though the data is out there, it is pretty difficult to find the data exactly what you're looking for and format it correctly, but that's beside the point. However, even though all of this data is out there, you are pseudonymous. So it's not like your name or, you know, Chris Buren or Phil Cohn is out there on this public ledger. You do have a long random string of digits and numbers and letters that kind of represents who you are. So in that respect, people can dox you and connect your name to your address and put it out on Twitter, and people can all see your transactions and everything like that. But at the same time as there being this public ledger, there is a layer of kind of pseudo anonymity that is out there. So that's one of the things that I would consider.
Great. Pseudo anonymity. I can't say it or spell it. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, Phil, and then just one quick build on the security side. You know, think of in Web3, you know, the wallet is the single sign-on of Web3, and it's your password. And what we see happening with decentralized identity is usernames and passwords go away. And the reason they can do that is because the password, essentially the key that is how you protect and how you encrypt the data on the blockchain, is a number so unimaginably large, no one's going to be able to hack it. It's actually a number that's 10 to the 70th power in length. It's a number that represents more than the number of atoms in the visible universe. So we're pretty confident, those of us that come from an engineering background, that this is a pretty secure system. It's the same type of encryption used by VPN. So if somebody managed to hack the blockchain and hacks Bitcoin, we've got a lot bigger problems, because pretty much that's the backbone of all the security systems in corporate and governments today.
Great, thank you. So I know a lot of people use blockchain and crypto and Bitcoin interchangeably, sometimes incorrectly. Let's clarify the differences and exactly how they are connected. I'm going to start with Chris.
Sure. So I would say that the popular line that's been going around the last few years has been, blockchain is very cool, right? Crypto is a lot of, lots of bad legal activities being, done with it and everything. But blockchain is a real technology. That's going to be the real game changer. But I would kind of take, a midpoint of view with that, right? So blockchain is just this new technology that's like a ledger system, distributed ledger system that's public, but you do have some pseudo anonymity in there. But crypto is just the currency application of that technology. So, when you're talking about a cryptocurrency, whether it be Bitcoin or ETH or Sol or anything like that, it's just an accounting framework, right? One strike on the ledger is equal to 1 Bitcoin. When you have your address on a public chain, these chains all have a history of transactions, right? Those transactions are just pluses and minuses in the ledger. So it's not like there's these little virtual, circular Bitcoins that are going over the network, although that's very, attractive to think about it that way. At the end of the day, it's just a bunch of zeros and ones, and +2, -1, +0.55, +0.7, going across these different addresses. So blockchain can be thought of as kind of the big umbrella of this technology. And below that, of many applications, cryptocurrency would just be that one application.
Okay, so Bitcoin, Ether, any cryptocurrency is an example of an application that unlocks the power of the blockchain, right?
That's right.
Tony, anything to add to that?
Very well said.
Wow, okay. I should get a grade on this then, maybe. What do you think? So you mentioned before, Tony, rattled off in the beginning, some other differences between just databases we have today and blockchain. Let's double click, right? We know cryptocurrency, we talked about that. Let's talk about some other applications that you see the blockchain performing for us more effectively. Why don't you start, Tony?
Yeah, I think that at the core, as we've talked about, Bitcoin was designed as a store of value and as a currency, as a cryptocurrency. And one of the limitations on Bitcoin is the settlement time. It takes roughly 30 minutes for us to know that you can move it in 10 minutes, but you need about 30 minutes to know that it's secure. There are other blockchains that are settling much faster. At the end of the day, though, 30 minutes is still much faster than it takes to settle payments in today's existing financial network. Just imagine if you have you're selling Apple stock from your Robinhood account, and then you want to be able to move that money over to Chase. There are several days that it takes to settle that stock trade before that cash is available in Robinhood. And then it takes several days for that ACH transfer to happen before the money moves across. So the average person can be looking anywhere from 5 to 10 days from the time they sell till that money is available for them to use, and then before they might move that into Venmo or somewhere else. These are all this settlement delay. This is all caused by the intermediaries in the financial system and all the people that are involved in moving it around, recording the transactions, and securing it. When we move to a blockchain world, these are all things that can happen instantaneously within seconds. So just imagine what that means for the flow of money, what that means for being able to reinvest capital when you can actually take control of it and you move out of this mode of all the credit and all the intermediaries. I think the bringing efficiency to the financial network is going to be one of the great things we're going to see come out of the blockchain revolution.
Very well said, Tony. I think along that same line, if we're talking about financial services, we would be remiss if we didn't mention DeFi, or decentralized finance, which is probably the most developed form of application in terms of blockchain today. So basically, DeFi is just taking your traditional financial services, right? Lending, borrowing, depositing your cash or your money in like a money market account and getting interest on that, and building like a new architecture, a new way to apply that and build that and implement that on an open system like this. So we talked before about how Bitcoin is just like an accounting system, right? Plus one, minus one in a ledger. But there's other what we call layer ones out there that are that can handle complex code on that chain, and that code is basically just a business. We call them protocols in the space. Ethereum is an example of this layer one smart contract platform, Solana, and there's a lot of other ones out there. So basically what DeFi is just code, a bunch of contracts, a bunch of code that put together makes some of the similar financial services that we see today. So there's different ways that you can deposit your ETH, your different cryptocurrencies into accounts, into different platforms like this, and get yield on them. And we're not talking about, the 0.05% APY that you get at a regular bank. These are a little more, loaded than that, but with the additional risk, obviously. But my point being here is, why is this an improvement over the traditional system? I saw a statistic that of the probably like 5 to 10 largest lending borrowing platforms, 80 to 90% of the interest that is gained by the platform from lending out your money is put back into people that are depositing their crypto into these accounts. When you compare that to banks, it's not even close. So the transparency, the immutability, and the general opportunities that come with DeFi, I think eclipse what's currently being in the TradFi space today.
Yeah, Tony, I saw you shaking your head. Go ahead.
Yeah, and what we're starting to see building upon that is our new forms of not just finance, but new forms of governance as well too. Because you can not only put a financial record on the blockchain, but you can also put the record of someone's vote. And because of decentralized identity, when somebody writes a record that says they voted for something, and we know that they're a holder or they're a member of a group, it's indisputable that that's an election that you can't dispute, and you can't dispute how that record is formed. And there's a really fascinating project that's taken hold in the last year called Nouns. Nouns, and this is an NFT community, and the people that buy the noun, what they pay when they buy that noun, that NFT, that money's all going into a treasury. And as of a day or two ago, the last time I looked, there's $38 million in the treasury. And the usage to deploy that capital, if you have a proposal for how to spend it, if you own a noun, you can make a proposal, you can write that up, and then your fellow nouns will vote on that. And what happens is, right in the vote itself, there's a block of code that everyone can see that shows how the money is going to be spent, where it's going to be transferred. So these are just all these fascinating new mechanisms for governance and finance. I think they're just going to revolutionize how corporations work, much less, as Chris was talking about, if this organization wanted to put $38 million in a bank account and walk down to Chase or Citi and do that, the amount of red tape and the amount of bureaucracy that one would have to go through to have that much money, to move that much money around, the financial controls and all the regulations that are in place. And like this, none of that has happened on the blockchain. In fact, we don't even know who started. These are all anonymous people that started this project. So you've got an anonymous group of founders, an anonymous group of contributors that are managing a $40 million bank account. That's fascinating. That is all possible today with a couple of lines of code on the blockchain.
Yeah, it's fascinating, but it triggers concern as well, right? If it's not managed correctly, right? Anonymity is great unless it's abused, right? So this is an opinion question. What do you think of the risks of full anonymity on the blockchain, and how do you think that the government may regulate some of this stuff going forward? I'll start with Chris.
So this is kind of what I focus on, more on the quant side of stuff. So like systematic risks within the space. But I would say that if you look at some of the examples that have been that have happened over the last few months, Tornado Cash, which is a mixer, which basically allows you to deposit some of your coins and crypto in there and it uses, some pretty complex math and cryptography to kind of mix all the crypto together and kind of cover the tracks and cover the, the steps that these cryptos and addresses have taken over the past, blocks within the blockchain. And it kind of messes all that up and makes it really hard for regulators, for different institutions and agencies to kind of, identify where these coins have gone and where they're going. And recently, a lot of governments have kind of pushed that, website to be shut down. And I think the founder was also arrested in the Netherlands, I think, or somewhere in Europe too. So there is a lot of, regulation by enforcement, I would say, going on before there's actual regulation, which is another opinion all in itself. But this is what happens when you have an open system like this. Although there are ways that, the community can kind of come together and say, we can try to self-regulate, we can try to make sure that bad actors are being pushed as far aside as we can. There are caveats to this kind of system. So it's a trade-off like anything else.
Yeah, still a work in progress. Tony, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think I think we're all waiting for proper regulation to come out of governments for how to do this. We're in a situation where innovation is outpacing regulation in many ways and policy, and the policymakers are trying to quickly come up to speed, but they're not able to keep up with the pace of innovation that's out there right now. I think we're going to see a lot of cases where there's going to be, as there is right now, over enforcement. But this is a pattern that we've seen for the last 30 years. It's funny to think that at one time when the Netscape Navigator first came out, when Mark Andreessen built Netscape, the software itself, because they wrote and they designed SSL, they designed security for the modern internet, because at the time web browsers didn't have any security. Actually, most of the internet doesn't have security at the base layer. So when Netscape put security in there, because they knew people would do e-commerce and they wouldn't be comfortable putting credit card numbers and personal information on an unsecured website, suddenly Netscape went on the same munitions list that sarin nerve gas and Patriot missiles were on, because it was considered military-grade encryption and it was not for export. And it took a lot of conversations with the government and regulators to discuss what that was and what the public good was versus what the risks were. So governments are, we're always going to see this bias towards over-regulating, but I think it's on the job of the people that are innovating and the people behind them, the lobbyists, to get out there and just help make sure everyone understands what we're trying to do.
Great, thank you. Last question as we peek into the future. This is really an opinion question. With everything we discussed around blockchain and, right now the use case with cryptocurrency, do you see this new innovation technology allowing for crypto to replace dollars and coins? And, we've all seen that evolution of people having money in their pocket and then going to, debit cards, going to Venmo and other services. Do you think the next iteration is, commerce being done all with crypto because of blockchain? I'll start with you, Tony.
I think so. I think we have too many inherent restrictions and barriers in the current banking system. I think if anyone in this room, if two people are going to go out to lunch today and needed to split the bill, the hardest problem would be to figure out which cash app they're going to use to pay each other. Are we going to use Venmo? Are we going to use Zelle? What are we going to use? But if you bring in somebody from outside of the United States and Europe, and sending money electronically is really hard to do. There are far too many barriers. We've got 2 billion people around the world that are underbanked. So this is a tool for financial inclusion that gets around a lot of the challenges and the delays we have. So I think moving towards an electronic payment system for consumers, for electronic cash, probably will take a little bit longer, because we need mobile phones, we need point of sale. There's a lot of infrastructure that has to be in place. We're probably 3 to 5 iPhones away before consumers touch it. But on the back end, I don't doubt that central banks will start to adopt electronic distributed ledger technology and electronic cash, central bank digital currencies, just to start helping capital move faster, more efficiently for the financial networks.
Chris, what do you think?
I agree. I would say that when blockchain or, distributed ledger technology or any kind of iteration of this kind of thing really is implemented, whether it is on the consumer side and payments between people or business to business type commerce, when it is truly implemented and when we are really getting the benefits of it, people won't know it, right? This is kind of like a back end type of technology. It's not like you're gonna, send money to people and you're gonna see, oh, this is definitely blockchain on my phone, right? We're gonna have all of the benefits that come with this technology, but people aren't really gonna know about it. So definitely in the future, I'd say this is gonna be an area to watch.
Great. One last question, since you both are so good at predicting the future. Mega Millions tonight is over $400 million. You have any ideas? Can the blockchain tell me what the numbers are? No?
I think you have a better shot at some of these shit coins that are out there than the Mega
Okay.
Millions. but-
Fair enough. I think we have a few minutes for questions, if there are questions. Okay, Tony, I don't know if you heard Alex, but I don't know if you could see in the
couldn't.
Zoom. Yeah, in the Zoom chat, there may be questions. I don't have access to those here, but maybe you can take a look and see if there's questions coming through.
I
Any
don't see any in the chat or the Q&A yet.
Okay. Any questions in the room? Did we unlock the mystery or do you still have questions? Ah, in the back there, Alex. We have a couple, actually.
Hi, I'm Ritesh. I have a question regarding crypto trading. Need to know like what is happening across the globe, why people are losing a lot of money in crypto trading. What's going on?
Well, I would say that if you are doing any kind of day trading or crypto trading, you are going to lose money, right? The shops and funds and banks out there that are doing this full time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because this is a 24/7 market. This is their life. And any day trader is, unfortunately, in the short term, I don't think they're going to beat them. But if you are interested in the space, longer term, I'd say probably taking a longer term view on this type of stuff than short term is a good move.
And is that question, like, can I ask a clarifying?
Yeah, go ahead,
Is that
Tony.
People losing to trading or people losing to the hacks? Because there are hacks every single day. We're hearing about millions of dollars being lost. I just want to know which one it was.
So more around the hacks, Tony, is the answer.
Yeah, I know this is because we are using new programming languages and we're using new patterns, and there is a lot of bad, insecure code that's out there that's running these DeFi protocols Chris talked about. And there are people that, because all the code's open source, they study it, they look at it, they look for vulnerabilities, and they strike. And that's what we're seeing happening right now.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. We have another question up here and then one in the back too.
Wanted to get your feedback about blockchain and supply chain in agriculture, et cetera, from a global perspective, maybe.
Yeah, good question. Did you hear that, Tony?
I did, and this is a great B2B use case. This is one that a lot of organizations have been investing in and already starting to put the supply chain for shipping. It's happening. We're seeing it in also in food supply chain as well too, because it's a great use case because you've got a lot of different people that are involved in these supply chains, a lot of different organizations. And when you, as probably you all know, like whenever you try to get multiple companies to agree on one standard or one place to record the data or who's going to own it, it gets really complicated. And blockchain becomes that neutral third party that everybody can agree on, that everyone can use securely, and that we can start recording data like what was the temperature, what's the chain of custody, who owns it. So I think this is one of those great use cases, but it's going to become invisible, as Chris said. And if it's done right, we won't see it, but it's a great use case.
Great. Chris, anything?
Oh, blockchain supply chain is I have a lot of hot takes in this area, but I'll try to keep it short. So basically the history of this kind of thing probably started in like 2014, 2015, when they had these permission blockchains, which in my opinion were nothing more than databases, right? Blockchains, traditionally public blockchains, are supposed to be open source. Anyone can transact on them. It's transparent, but with these permission chains, the number of participants and nodes and people that can interact on the network are limited to, just the conglomerate or just the group of businesses that want to transact. So what happened was all of these businesses wanted to do supply chain on blockchain, and it was the new hot thing. And if you wanted to get a little bump in your stock price, that was what you sent out to your marketers in your PR department. But the problem is, like Tony said, businesses don't want to join someone else's network when the person that owns that network, that permission chain, is going to see all of your data, get all of your alpha and everything that you're doing. So now what's very exciting, what's happening recently now, which is it's about time, is privacy solutions on public chains are allowing businesses to not just, tokenize assets and procurement contracts and things like that on chain. But in addition to that, you have a native payment system on that network, whether it is ETH or probably more like a stable coin or a tokenized dollar or something like that. But if you're talking about supply chain, a blockchain's applications in supply chain, privacy solutions on public chains with a native payment system built in, I mean, that's 100% the future, I think.
Great, thanks. And answer your question? Okay, we a question in the back, right?
Yeah, I'd like to know, how is cryptocurrency decentralized, or at least proof of stake cryptocurrencies decentralized when it's like a new project and there's not that many token holders and they decide to vote on things? How is that truly decentralized if there's not a lot of token holders, like initially? Or how does that work?
Chris?
Yeah, it's not decentralized. That's the answer to that. Ethereum a few weeks ago just underwent their big merge where it transferred from proof of work, which was very energy intensive, but pretty secure, right? Bitcoin runs proof of work. It's been around for the past 10 or 12 years now, I think. And so is Ethereum, since it started in 7-8 years ago. Now it transitioned to proof of stake, which basically means instead of having a lot of computing power on this network, securing the network, it depends on the number of tokens that you have to secure the network. So Lido, Coinbase, and some of the other big staking providers, where you can basically, it's like a DeFi project, right? You can take your ETH, put it in these protocols, get some yield on it. But these large protocols like Lido and Coinbase, like I said, are now in charge of securing the network. So a large majority of the transactions are processed on ETH now. Forget new coins, right? New projects on Ethereum, which is one of the oldest blockchains out there. The majority of the transactions are only being processed by a few parties. And there's been a lot of discussion within the Ethereum community, how can we, protect against this? If these parties, if these protocols wanted to kind of attack the network and control the network, halt transactions for whatever reason they wanted to, they have the power to do it. So it's an ongoing problem. If I had the solution, I would definitely tell you, but unfortunately I don't.
Tony, anything to add to that?
I would say that what we're finding is decentralization is a spectrum. It's not a binary option. There's a lot of experimentation. There are a lot of projects that are experimenting with fully decentralized offerings, fully decentralized protocols, and there are ones that are more centralized. And it's going to be contextual. Not everything can be decentralized, just like Sunday afternoon NFL game, an NFL coach at 4th and Inches doesn't ask every fan, what should I do? We're all going to vote on what the next play is.
They should, though. They should.
Yeah, there are. It's a continued debate, and you've got to find like where in your application or protocol do you need decentralization, and where do you still need accountability and centralization.
Great, thank you. I think that wraps it up. I want to thank Tony joining us from Chicago, and also Chris. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Chris is part of the first class of the alumni award recipients for the Rutgers Business School. We had our inaugural event a few weeks ago, and Chris is part of that first class, and you could see why. So thank you both. Great pleasure.
Phil, Alex, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much for coming.